What's up, fight fans, Lunar Visual MMA followers? Thanks for tuning in. UFC 298 picks is what I'm doing today. This is the first of many videos that I will be doing. I'm just going to be doing picks for fight nights, pay-per-view cards, all of it. Plan on doing regional stuff too. Even the lower tier promotions, I'll probably maybe do some like LFA in the future. Work on getting the basic stuff now, and then we'll work on getting those other promotions covered. But right now, focus on the big ones, see how this works out, get a flow going, and then we'll slowly work our way into doing all that. Just so there's always something coming out. Always want to have some content pushed out for everyone to watch. It's been a little lackluster lately, so I'm trying to keep it up and put my input on the fight game out there. I'm really just commentating on the whole entire fight game. Just a guy in his room commentating with a flag behind him in a little, we wouldn't call it a studio, but let's get into UFC 298. That's really what I want to cover here. Geoff Neal and Ian Garry. This is something I've been reviewing for a while. Geoff Neal and Ian Garry is a good fight. It's a good fight because you got a really good and upcoming prospect who's got a lot of media and attention around him, who still needs to be tested, it seems, because he hasn't been tested. And Geoff Neal, I don't know, he's a test, but I wouldn't say he's the biggest test. I guess we'll find out. He's coming off of a loss. Geoff Neal hasn't been fighting. He hasn't been very active. 3 fights in the last 3 years. December of 21, August of 22, and then March of 23. I mean, he's been fighting top-level guys. Past 3 guys is Santiago Ponzinibbio, Vicente Luque, Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, you give it to him there, he is fighting the best. Just not staying active, though. If you go down and you look at his past fights, he was on a 7-fight winning streak. Bilal Muhammad being under that winning streak. Mike Perry, I mean, he's got a little bit. That's from 2019, 2018. He went on a run. But now he's going up against Ian Garry. I mean, he's got if he can beat Ian Garry on the feet, he can beat him on the feet. But Ian Garry's pretty good on the feet, as we've seen. I don't want to say Geoff Neal has all the tools to beat Ian Garry, but I would say he has a chance, the same way Neil Magny had a chance with Mike Mallet at UFC 297 in Canada, or Toronto card that we just saw. Geoff Neal's kind of in the same situation as Neil Magny. I mean, he's a little younger, I guess, but it's in that same, age range and caliber of people he's been fighting. Most of his fights in KO, 60% of them. 9 out of 15 of his wins are by KO. So I don't see him taking Ian Garry to the ground. I don't see Ian Garry wanting to go to the ground either. So it's going to be, the matchmakers knew what they were doing with this. These two guys are going to stand and bang. It's a great fight to start off the main card. But yeah, I don't know. Let's look at Ian Garry. I always got to look at both of their stats before I make an official prediction. Even though I've already got a prediction made up in my head, I'm going to look at both, give them the benefit of the doubt, so to speak. So Ian Garry, we're going to look at now. A lot younger guy, undefeated. 7 out of his 13 wins are KO. Not a ground guy at all. So, like I said, it's gonna be on the feet most likely. Coming off of the Neil Magny decision, Daniel Rodriguez TKO, and then Song Keenan TKO. 3 impressive wins. Not that same level of competition though as Neil Magny. I mean, not Neil Magny, but Geoff Neal. Not the same level of competition. So I'm going to factor that in too. But when the UFC's got a star like Ian Garry or Mike Mallet or whoever, they kind of set him up to win. Like the Mike Mallet, Neil Magny fight, Mike Mallett's never been on the main card before, and he's in the main card in the last pay-per-view, and he's in Canada. His happens to be his home state. I mean, I guess the stars were aligned, but when they put you on that main card there, they want you to shine. I mean, they're not. This is in 298s, and where is UFC 298 taking place in? Let me check that, because that is something I want to see. I think it's in Vegas. Long pause. Hold on. Where is it at? Honda Center in Anaheim, California. Yeah, I don't know. They're not really picking the market for him, but coming off of what? He hasn't lost a fight in his professional career. So he's on a run, and I don't see Jeff Neal. I see Jeff Neal maybe giving him a little bit of a run for his money, but I just see Ian as the younger guy. Age is a big thing. Age is going to be a factor. But I wouldn't count Jeff Neal out. I'm gonna give it to. Part of me wants to go with Jeff Neal, but my gut feeling is saying that Ian Garry, he's just gonna take him. He's been a lot more active. I mean, he fought 3 times in 23. Jeff fought once in 23 and lost. I give the active guy more of a chance than the less active guy, 100%. That's my main issue with Jeff Neal. Although Jeff Neal looks like he could easily starch Ian if he was a little active, but he has been facing higher caliber competition. Just keep that in mind. But I'm going to go with Ian Garry. Just more activity, and the activity he's been doing is winning. So I'm going to give that one to him. Ian Garry, probably by decision or second or third round TKO. That's my solid pick I'm going to go with for that one. And now we got Robert Whitaker, Paulo Costa. I don't think this is the official order. I think that's the right order. They're next. Robert Whitaker, Paulo Costa. This is a fight that should have happened a long time ago. It should have happened a long time ago. This was supposed to happen last year. Paulo didn't get paid his money in his contract. He wanted to get paid more or something. And then he got injured in another fight. Or Rob has been he's coming off of the Dricus Du Plessis loss. It was a tough loss for him. First TKO loss since 2019. But other than that, he's been decisioning everybody. Even when he's losing, he's been decisioning everybody. This one is tough. Because Paulo does not really get taken out like that. And he generally goes to the decision. For me, for the Robert Whitaker versus Paulo Costa, it's hard because you got an older vet, seasoned vet, former champ, versus Paulo Costa, who's a younger guy, kind of 30. Is he 30? I don't know. They're actually the same age. Never mind. They're actually the same age. But he is fresher on the scene. Probably hasn't been in as many wars as Rob has. Only suffered 2 losses. So he's going to be the fresher guy. We'll say that. I want to say Robert just because he's always got the ability to go the distance for 5 rounds or 3 rounds. And he's been through a lot of the division. Now you could say that the division that he's been through is all gone and retired, but there's still Gastelum and Cannonier that they're still fighting, and Vettori. But Paulo, you look at his last few fights, they've all been against older guys. I mean, Yoel Romero, Uriah Hall, Johnny Hendricks. I think all 3 of those guys are basically retired. Y'all was fighting in PFL. It's basically retirement. And then the last fight was over Luke Rockhold at 22. So Other than Izzy and Marvin, who he lost to, he hasn't really fought any high-level competition. Rob's been fighting the best. And he's had a lot of, I don't want to say it's a lot of inactivity, but he didn't fight at all in 23. I believe ring rust is a thing. So it just adds up. And I want to take Whitaker if he can, really not get clocked with a bad head kick or a nasty hook from Paulo. I think Robert does it by decision. I don't think he knocks Paulo out. He's really durable. We saw that in the Yoel fight. For both of them, they both fought Yoel, but yeah, I take Robert by decision. I could be wrong, but it just seems to add up more in his favor. If he isn't quote unquote done or washed like people might say he is after that Dricus loss, then he's got a good chance of still being a top contender. But I think this is I don't want to say it's a make or break fight for him, but if he loses 2 in a row, that'll be the first time he's lost 2 times in a row since 2013 and 2014. So that'll be his first 2-loss skid in a long time. And once you start getting older and those losses add up, they generally tend to keep going up with age. But I mean, he's what, 34? Yeah, he's 34. It's that point where he's either gonna. This is your last run for the title for Rob. Last run for the title. And the middleweight belt is, who knows where it's going to be in another year or so. So that'll be interesting to see where he ends up at. But I say he gets it by decision. Maybe one more fight, he gets a title shot. Be interesting if there was a Duplessis rematch, maybe, if Duplessis is still the champion. But that's all I'll say on that. Moving on to the next one, Tai Tuivasa and Marcin Tybura. This one's actually before Rob and Paulo. I just had it in the wrong order. But Tai, he's been on a little bit of a skid recently, but not for a bad reason. He's been fighting the best, Cyril Gane, KO loss, Sergey Pavlovich, KO loss, and Alexander Volkov submission. 3 finishing losses, but he's getting finishing losses to the best in the division. I mean, Alexander Volkov's a seasoned vet, tall as hell, and really, really good, still competing at a high level. Sergey, he's got dynamite in his hands more than most heavyweights do. I mean, we've seen he had 6 consecutive knockouts, just fought for the interim title. And then Cyril Gane, who's just such a technical guy. You don't see Tai going through a technical guy like Gane. Gane's just too witty. But I will say that this is a much better matchup for Tai Marcin. Simply, if you just look at Marcin's last few fights. Before his last fight, Tom Aspinall TKO loss, it's Blagoy Ivanov and Alexander Romanov decisions. You generally don't go to decisions in the heavyweight division. Generally, it's a finish, and Tai's a finisher, which should give people who are betting something to look at. I mean, 13 of his 14 wins are by KO, and he's got 1 win by decision. So you gotta keep that in mind. I am certainly keeping it in mind. I'm going to go with Tai on this one. It's a lot easier because Tai goes out on a shield. He doesn't hang around for too long, and he gives you just about everything in the first 2 rounds, 3 rounds probably. After that, there's nothing left. So he's either getting knocked out or the other person's already on the floor sleeping.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a banger from Western Sydney, and we bang on with anyone, and I'll bang on with anyone till the day I die.
But I will say with Marcin, he's got 3 different ways of how he usually finishes the fight. It's split up. So 37% of his fights, 9 out of his 24 wins are by decision. 6 of his 24 wins are by submission. And then 37%. 9 of his wins are by KO. So this guy, he's got a little bit of diversity of how he goes about a fight. And his last fights, they've all been decisions. But before that, you've seen a lot of some TKOs, submission slipped in here and there. I mean, honestly, now that I'm scrolling back, his submissions were all in his semi-pro career is what it looks like. So 2013, yeah. He's got a lot of submissions in his early professional career, but not in his later career. Yeah, so looks like it's going to be a slugfest, probably. But I don't see it going well for Marcin. He's just got that power, and based off of numbers, we're going off of numbers right now. 37% of the time he wins by KO. It's either KO or decision for this guy, and I don't like 37% for a heavyweight. Generally, those numbers are a lot higher, so that's why I'm going with Ty. But I wouldn't count Marcin out. I wouldn't count him out. Never count him out. Never count anyone out. That one was a little easier. We'll move on to the next one, which is a lot harder. Merab and Cejudo. Merab and Henry Cejudo is a tough one to pick. Something I've been thinking about for a little bit. But it's weird how these two guys are matched up because Merab has been in the 135 division, basically was ready for a title shot, but was ready for a title shot when Aljamain Sterling was the champion, but that's his teammate, so he didn't fight his teammate. So he waited it out. He waited it out for a while, like 2 or 3 title defense fights. Wow. And that's a little bit of a, let's see, he's fought once once every year in the past 3 years. So he fought twice in 21, once in 22, once in 23. So hasn't been the most active, but he's still top of the division. Got a little bit of age over Cejudo. 3 years, 4 years. He's got 4 years over Cejudo. 4 years. 4 years over Cejudo. They're both stylistically, they're both wrestlers. Henry's an Olympic wrestler, won Olympic gold, an elite wrestler. So I think I saw what they were doing with this. Usually when two wrestlers meet, they stand and bang. They have a kickboxing match. But they're also not the most active, simply because Henry retired in 2020, vacated his belt, and then Merab just waited out a title shot until his buddy got dethroned. So these guys have been sitting out. It's going to be interesting to see two guys who haven't been the most active, who are high levels still, compete against each other, who are the same styles. They're both the same stylistically, really. I mean, let's look at their numbers. Well, Henry is a wrestler. He is a wrestler, but never really been able to capitalize on it submission-wise. And we're just looking at the stats here. 0 of his 16 wins are by submission. And we look at Merab, 12 of his 16 wins are by submission. You notice how they did this? You got to think, when you're looking at these two guys matched up, I mean, it's also timing and stuff, but like 16 wins, Cejudo, Merab, 16 wins. It's always a numbers thing. I swear they're always looking at the smallest details, and then they're like, oh yeah, these two guys are around the same level. Let's put them together. But yeah, now that I'm looking at that, Merab is one submission out of 16 wins. Sorry, I think I said something wrong earlier. One submission, but he's a wrestler. So he's that grappling, in-your-face Khabib style type of guy. He's 3 KOs and 16 wins, 12 decisions. Yeah, I mean, look at this. I mean, 8 decisions for Cejudo out of 16 wins. I really don't see either of these guys getting knocked out. I see it going. It's a 5-round fight too. It's a co-main. I see it going the distance, 100%. Seeing both of their styles, they both have fairly good cardio. I mean, if we saw Cejudo, he went 5 rounds with Aljamain in his last fight, and the fact that he went 5 rounds after having a 3-year layoff, even though he had a full training camp, still a 3-year layoff is a 3-year layoff. Like, it's a long time to be out. But Merab he's got a little more, I don't know. I like Cejudo's striking over Merab's, but at the same time, I just saw a tweet from him put out the other day saying, if I lose this fight, he's done. Like, he's retiring. He's like, it's just too much having a kid. You got to be all in this. And honestly, I think he's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He's done what he's done, in the flyweight and bantamweight division, and he's getting older. He had 3 years that he could have stayed in a little longer, and I think it would have helped him and made him a slightly better flyweight and bantamweight GOAT. But he retired and left, and I think that's going to impact him still. And then there's the Aljo loss. Merab and Aljo are teammates. I feel like they're stylistically the same, and I think Merab could do the same thing to him, but Henry is pretty good at adapting. I'll say that, but I don't know. This is a tough one. They're not submitting each other. They're not KOing each other. It's going to go the distance. I just think it's either Merab or it could be a close one, especially if they try to grapple each other, right? Who gets the most out of that exchange? I want to say Merab right now by decision, only because there's this theory, not even a theory, it's kind of facts at this point. But since I've been watching MMA, when there's these guys like TJ Dillashaw, Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman, all these guys that come off of long layoffs and they try to fight top level guys, it just doesn't work out. It doesn't. And I just see that happening to Henry. I just don't think he's age, man. Age, inactivity, and probably numerous other things. I don't know if he's gotten surgeries in his time off, but he could have other injuries. I'm going to give it to the fresher, younger guy, Merab. I just don't see Henry doing it. I mean, unless you count out John Jones. John Jones is the only guy that can take 3 years off and do what he did to Gane. But everyone else practically don't give him a chance, really. Well, not a strong chance, I'll say that. So I'm going to go Merab by decision here. It's not the easiest decision I've made in my life, but it's the one I'm going to go with. And now we're on the main event. Alex Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria. Man, I mean, this is also not the toughest one, but still makes you think because everyone's got so much stock in Topuria. Volk coming off of a head kick KO loss and a decision loss to, oh no, he lost the decision and then he beat Yair. But coming off of those 2 losses, certainly been a struggle. I wouldn't say a struggle for him, but it's been a challenge for him. Losing the decision, going up a weight class, and then losing by head kick KO. Those are 2 recent losses. A champ who hasn't lost in years. That's something. He's faced losses recently, but we're about to see if he can bounce back from kind of like the struggles he's had, But he was up a weight class. We got to give it to him, and he fought Makhachev in Abu Dhabi on like 2 days notice, 10 days notice, I think it was, and didn't have a camp. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But I think now that he's at a full camp, I think he's going to be a lot more cautious to striking in general if he saw that he got hit with a kick in the first round. So it should be interesting to see. I think Volk, like I said, he's going to be more cautious. So I think it's going to be a 5-round fight. With Ilia, his striking is his strongest suit, but his submission game shouldn't be underrated because he has more of those than he does knockouts. 8 out of his 14 wins, submission. shouldn't be overlooked at all. But if we look at Volkanovski's ground game, and Islam has spent maybe 6 rounds, maybe 30 minutes in the cage with him, couldn't submit him. And he didn't try to submit him in the second fight at all. He didn't try to go for a submission because it didn't work out for him the first time. And, Volkanovski's always been good at adapting. So I don't think, unless there's a crazy exchange where Ilya just pieces up Volk and then he recovers and then he gets him tired on the ground like Ortega did to him in that title fight, I don't see Ilya submitting him. I see more of a chance of Ilya knocking him out if Volk is trying to just get into a firefight with him. But me, knowing who Volk is and the cautious guy he is when he's at 145 and when he's been fighting all the top dogs like Max Holloway 3 times and, Jose Aldo, Chad Mendez, he's good. He's good at what he does. He's very balanced. And I think he can mitigate what Ilya is bringing as long as he's cautious, as long as he's done what he's always done in the featherweight division. I see him winning by decision, but I see it being a close fight. Maybe Topuria wins a couple rounds, 1 or 2 rounds, where it's like hit or miss. I could definitely see Topuria taking a round from him, though, 100%. Just to him being too cautious and not as aggressive, just trying to avoid, taking significant strikes. But I'm going to have to give it to Volk on this one. I think he's going to be much, much more cautious. I think it's that simple. He's the champ. I'm not taking that away from him just because he lost to a guy that's much bigger than him and he fought on like 10 days notice. Volk is an animal. He really is. And he's a machine. I don't think Ilya is going to be able to get past him, but never count Ilya out. He's undefeated, but I don't think Ilya's ever faced a Volk. So I'm going to go Volk by decision. And that's that. That's all my picks for the main card. I'll be doing fight nights too, coming up. Just a matter of putting them out, studying the guys, making sure I'm not just rambling on here. I want to at least know what's going on. So I'll study up on the ones that we got coming up pretty soon. And we've got like 10 weeks of fights coming up after this long layoff in December and gap in January. And my battery died, so that's why there's that cut there. But yes, fight nights, pay-per-view cards. I'll be doing my picks for the main cards and all those coming out soon. We've got 10 weeks coming up, just nonstop. So my plan is to be doing every single one of them, or at least at the very least, the main events of the fight nights and the main cards of the pay-per-views. So those will be the bare minimum, hopefully just UFC. And then I'm going to try and look into some of the regional, local MMA scene as well. And then I'm going to Summit Fighting Championships in Mississippi in March, August, and November. I will be covering those a lot more in depth once I start figuring out who's matched for those cards. And I'll be there in person interviewing some of the fighters there. So stay tuned for those, because that will be me hands on deck talking to fighters, pro and amateur, most likely. More on the pro side, semi-pro side, and then a few amateurs maybe here and there. But that's coming up in March. I'll try and make some announcements on that soon. There's probably still a bunch of negotiations going on for that. So, and fighters fall out all the time. So when I do know, I will make it known. But that's all I got. I'll be putting these out. Can't think of anything else. But if you did like this, let me know. If you guys are looking to hear something else in the MMA world, something y'all want to hear my perspective on or whatever, drop something in the comments. Leave any suggestions you feel you guys want to hear about the MMA world that I'm not covering. I'm looking to cover all the fun stuff about it, mainly the sport, but gotta spice things up here and there. So thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.